Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Quarantine Coaching Conversations. I'm Coach Gene Clemens, and I am joined by, I'm not going to, you know what? I'm going to say it. I'm joined by a guy who I believe is a defensive back guru. And you don't see me throw that word out there a lot. I'm not the guy who's out here, blowing smoke up people's glutes. I try to keep it as 100 as I can when I'm talking about people and what they do and their abilities. My man, Charles Williams, DB coach at Jesuit High School, but so much more than just a DB coach at a high school. And quite honestly, some of y'all private schools, y'all must be sleeping in the Hillsborough, Pinellas, Polk County, Pasco County area. Why y'all ain't blowing this man phone up to come lead your program? I'll never understand that. But his time's gonna come. At some point, somebody will get smart down there and put that man in charge of their program. But I'm glad to have you, Coach Dub. We call him Coach Dub, so you're not gonna hear me say Charles or Coach Williams. It's Coach Dub. Coach Dub, thank you for joining us, man.
Man, Coach, I appreciate it, man, and I appreciate the kind words, man. Me and you coach together, so at the end of the day, man, a parent's word or even a kid's word don't matter as much as one of your fellow coaches, especially somebody that you coach with. And
Absolutely,
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And the same way you feel about me, bro, I'm gonna give you your roses while you're here. I feel the same way about you, bro.
I appreciate it.
Best football minds that I've ever been around. These people have no idea. You on the board doing offense every day. They have no idea. You probably coached one of the most ferocious D lines in 2014 that Hillsborough County has ever seen. They have no idea.
Man, look.
They have no idea, man.
And it's interesting that you brought that up because I was going to bring it up, but since you jumped right to it, that year where I came in and you were there at Wharton High School and you were the DC and I came in and coached D-line. It was a lot of love. You came in and said, "Look, man, do you?" And I always feel like as a coordinator, it's such a blessing to have somebody that you don't have to look over. You don't have to worry about what's going on down there. And even if you don't necessarily if you look at a move and you go, you have faith that the person's doing that, in kind. And I always respected that about you, that you were able to do that. I was coming in, after coming from Tech and having their defensive line.
Highly recommended from my good friend Carlos Blake, by the way.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Coach Carlos Blake at Tampa Bay Tech.
Yeah, shout out to Carlos. Coach Blake's still down there doing it big in Tech. They've been able to put together a force in Tampa Bay after a lot of people slept on them for years. But I was doing it over there, and then I came with you, and then you left, and then I rolled in and put my little stank on it. But that I want to say from the year before that, 2013, that you had a nice little lick going there. 14, then 15. When I took over there, those 3 years are probably one of the nicest defensive sticks that Wharton ever had. And if we would have had any semblance of a legitimate offense,
man,
in 14 and in 15, we make a good run. I ain't saying we win those state titles because a lot of that stuff comes down to, chance. It's a lot of it's not even about being good. It's about getting lucky.
Auden Tate getting hurt like the fourth game of the season. I forget when he got hurt. Really hurt us on offense. I mean, he's
absolutely.
in the NFL now. I tell people all the time, he's easily one of the top 3 receivers I've ever seen in my life in high school. And I'm from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, so kid caught every ball you ever seen in your life. Like, he was our whole offense. He was like, once he went down and once he, I think it was a meniscus tear or something like that.
Yep.
That was pretty much a wrap for our offense.
And of course, we were like, why would you come back? Shut that thing down, homie. Like,
man, you about to go to
there's no reason to come back, even though it was selfish. And that's one of the things we're going to get into is about an ability to coach and want the best for your team, but not be selfish and do what's in the worst interest of the kid. We see it so many times now, kids that look like they've been through the war when they come out of high school because coaches run them into the ground. Just talk a little bit about how important it is to really care for a kid more than just what it can do for you on a Friday night or over a weekend if you're doing some type of, off-season event.
Right, man. I mean, it goes back to the old cliche, and I hate to call it a cliche. Most kids don't care about what you know until they know how much you care. And the Tate incident is a good example of, a kid like that who we know was going to Florida State, major Power 5 Division I. Hey, shut that thing down, man. You don't have nothing else to prove in high school, But another kid, let's say we had another kid that wasn't an Auden Tate, that wasn't probably going to go play in college. Maybe it was going to the military or going to junior college or something like that. We might have had that kid come back to play because that's in the best interest for him to come play. So, there's two sides of it, of the coin, that you just got to make sure that you're putting the kids first and foremost. I mean, this is not college. This is not the pros. No one's getting paid. I mean, you got to make sure you're doing right by these kids. State championship, district championship, winning games, be damned. You got to make sure you're doing right by these kids, man. And that even comes with putting them in the best position for them so they can go on and play college ball if that's what they want to do, if that's what they're trying to do. I mean, it goes, you know how we operate, Gene. It goes well beyond the on the field stuff, man.
And we're
taking these kids home every day if we need to.
Absolutely. We done logged a lot of miles in the car, driving kids around, buying them food because you knew they were hungry, whatever they need, to make them right. I mean, I feel like I've bought so many pairs of cleats that I've never worn in my entire life. You know what I'm saying? Like, trying to make sure that they had, because you wanted them to feel good about what they were doing, and I always say there's a thin line between buying somebody's respect and earning their respect. Like, it's dudes that break bread, but don't give a damn about your kid. Right. Like, that's the real. I don't have a ton of money, but if I'm breaking bread, it's not just because your kid's good. It's because your kid is giving me everything that I've asked of him, and I know that he doesn't have. If it's a situation where, he has, and he's like, "Yo, coach, my cleats messed up." I'm like, "Go buy some cleats, dude. What you talking about?" Right. But if you know that kid doesn't have to be able to do for him, is only out of respect. Even if that kid wasn't good, I would do that. If he's giving me everything that he has, Right. And that takes me into a conversation that we were having on Twitter the other day, because we were talking about kids and kids, picking colleges, and I talked about how I feel like coaches in general have to do a better job of steering kids to the right direction, in the right direction. And you bringing up the fact that, listen, if that kid is a dog, that kid is being who you want that kid to be, then he's obviously going to strive for whatever that best school is, because he really and truly believes that that's where he belongs at. And I'm going, yeah, I know that he believes it, but we know. That's the difficult thing, is that you don't want to kill a kid's dream. You don't want to kill a kid's confidence, but you also want that kid to have the best opportunity to be successful in college. And sometimes that's just not going to Alabama, right? Or Georgia or Florida. Man, I see so many of these receivers going to Florida, and I keep going, why are y'all going to Florida for? Like, if you're a DB, take your ass to Florida. Like, right. You're a defensive lineman, go to Florida. You play running back, cool, you can go to Florida. If you're a wide receiver, nah, man. The proof is in the pudding. Is just that for whatever reason, that position isn't translating well when it comes to the next level. And if you're going to Florida, that's just being 100. And if you're going to Florida, you have to be thinking in your mind, if I can get a scholarship from Florida, then I can get to the league. Your mind is there. If you're
not even just Florida, it's like, if you think about a prolific offense in the state of Florida, probably only UCF has a prolific offense going back last couple of years, right? Maybe, arguably. I mean, I'm not aware of the rankings of what these offenses are ranked now, but man, I would be pressed to see anybody that's more prolific than what UCF is. Now, are they playing Power 5 teams? They aren't, but man,
The Willie Taggart USF, and the ripple from him to Strong when they were first beginning. That was a prolific offense as well. But you're right. Prolific offenses not at Florida, not at Florida State, definitely not at Miami. FAU had a prolific offense. FIU, no.
So we go to Power 5 where these kids really want to go.
Yeah.
Why aren't they? Should go to Clemson and LSU and stuff like. I mean, you kind of get it.
Yeah,
maybe not LSU after this year, but we'll see.
Now we'll see, and we'll see about Florida too, because if Dan Mullen's offense is what it's supposed to be, then now what are we, year 3 now? We should start seeing that revenue pay in the wide receivers. And while I'm talking about wide receivers, I wanna transition, because the hardest thing in football to do is not play quarterback. The hardest thing in football to do is to guard a receiver in today's game of football. Everything is stacked up against you now. Everything is built towards offense. So to be able to be a successful defensive back now is so much more difficult than what people give it credit for, which means that coaching it is even that much more difficult. Why do you think it's? Because I really think that there's a science to it, but there's also an art. There's an artistry that comes with coaching defensive backs that you don't see in other positions. Why do you think that is?
Because, and maybe I'm biased, but in my opinion, you truly have to master the physical and mental aspect to be a high-level defensive back. I mean, you know it, Gene. You can have a guy that runs 4.2, 4.3 all day, but if he's dumping in a box of rocks and he's taking the cheese in cover 3, we're going to put him at defensive end, man.
You Absolutely. I mean? We did it. Like,
we did it.
We did it.
We did it, right? I mean,
we did it.
It's just, that's the art. To me, that's the art of it. These guys have to be just as good physically and mentally in the football game in terms of playing DB. Like, they got to know what's coming. So when you say it's a science, it's a science in terms of what's down the distance, what's going on. You know what I'm saying? What is this offense tendency to do? Then the art is, am I going to take the cheese in cover 3? Am I going to be forceful on number 1 in cover 2 and force them inside and keep the outside to make sure that I'm helping my safety? Am I going to be disciplined enough? You know what I mean? Am I going to pattern read? Am I going to squeeze the slant like I'm supposed to? Am I going to be disciplined with my eyes versus guessing? So the art is the guys that do it right, down in and down out. The Darrell Reeves, prime time, of course. Darius Slay right now. Xavier Rose, Pat P, guys like that. So to me, man, it's just that's really the art about it, man. Like you can lose on the line of scrimmage and still win down the field if you're perfecting the art and playing defensive back. You know what I mean? How many times have we seen a guy lose, get shook off the line, still make the play down the field? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And the only thing that matters is the play down the field. It's like I tell a lot of guys about, playing DB. Then it comes down to making plays when it comes down to playing DB. There's a big difference between Richard Sherman and Sean Smith. And nothing against Sean Smith, a great player, played about 10 years in the league, same size as Richard Sherman. But Richard Sherman catch the ball. Sean Smith don't. So there's another art in that in terms of where the guys that are the playmakers, the guys that are going to catch the ball. Because you can have 1 million PBUs, and unless you're taking that ball out of the air at the college and the pro level, they're going to still keep throwing the ball at you unless you intercept it and bringing it back. So
interceptions equate to money. At the end of the day, interceptions equate to money. Either it equates to scholarships from a high school to college thing, and it equates to a higher draft status from college to the pro level. We see a lot of that from the Clemson DBs who don't get a lot of interceptions, but they get a lot of PBUs, and that's why
Clemson DBs either. But they get paid.
They get paid, like you know what I'm saying. But they're around. They're around the ball a lot. But you notice the ones that are able to put their hands on the ball and keep it. Those are the people that end up. Oh man, we got to take him top 10. Those guys who get a lot of PBUs and they have all the athletic ability, you see them fall to the back half of the first round. or to the top of the second round.
Marcus Peters.
Yeah.
They were some would call him a Malcolm 10 at Washington. They didn't even play his junior year or senior year when Chris Peterson got there. Still winning the first round. He's been on 3 teams, right? Gets beat, be on a lot of highlights. But one thing he does a lot that a lot of guys don't do is catch that ball and
catch the ball.
Plays.
And he goes the other way with it when he catches
it. Man.
That's the difference.
The art is just, and another thing about art, you know how art sometimes gets boring? Like, you can go in an art exhibit, unless you're like in that culture and in it and crafting in it every day, it can get a little boring to the outside person or to somebody who's learning the craft. And that's the thing about DB. Like, salute to all the route guards and gold feet globals and guys that do all the Pacific sport specific training for receivers and running backs. But when it comes to DB, it gets old, it gets boring, it gets monotonous. You know what I'm saying? Like, guys really have to really love playing it because it's really crafting. It's really getting better. It's really no false steps, no wasted motion, keeping your eye disciplined. And it takes guys that are really trained at it on a daily basis to really play high level. I'll give you an example. In 2010 at Wharton, my first year, I'm coaching Vernon Hargraves. You know, he's one of the best players in the country. This is his junior year. He's one of the best. Maybe 2010. No, it's 2011. Sorry,
2011. We played ball in the 7-on-7 at USF when I was over on the East Coast at Fort Pierce Westwood.
Sure did.
Absolutely.
So our quarterback, who's in the NFL right now at the time, Chase Litton, he's in the league right now. He went down with an injury in the King game. So Vernon has to play quarterback. So he's playing quarterback practicing all week. And I'm reminding him, hey, you got to practice at DB. You haven't practiced all week. Like, I'm nervous about how you're gonna play. And in the game, he didn't practice all week. And I think the kid's name was Bilal something for Sickles. He tore him up. I think he hit him up for like 2 or 3 touchdowns, man. It wasn't good, but that's just the emphasis I'm trying to give. Like with DB in terms of the art, guys have to be willing to really perfect their craft. It's nonstop. It's gonna get boring. Sometimes it's gonna be exciting. Sometimes it's not. But man, once you get it, you got it, and you'll be good. And you can't go a week without it.
It's interesting you said because I don't mind throwing shots at route guards and all these other mofos out there. Like, here's my issue is that when I teach a receiver to play the position, I teach a receiver to play the position the same way I teach a DB to play the position. This is every day. This is your life. So from now on, every single day, like, when is there ever a time that you don't practice your basic fundamental, steps as a defensive back? It's every single day. It's not, hey, we're going to try this cute, sexy new thing because it looks good on YouTube.
Right.
Like, you have to be monotonous about it. The beauty is in the simplicity. Every single time, it doesn't matter how many times we run cover 3, you don't bite on that shit. Like, every time you let that thing go underneath and you rally to the tackle because the one time you bite on it, that's the time that's going off. My 2015, when I took over at Wharton, we ran cover. You remember we ran cover 3 the whole season.
I remember y'all running clock this at Wiregrass. I remember.
We ran cover 3 the entire season, and people were like, "Yo, man, you can't run cover 3 exclusively. Like, they're gonna find you out. They're gonna go 4 verticals." And but what they didn't realize is that I had taken them same defensive linemen that I had the year before. I had 5 good ones. Instead of putting 1 on the bench, I put all 5 on the field. I took them 2 outside, and we beat the hell out of the slot receivers. So you never got off the ball. One game, we let a slot receiver off the ball quick. The free safety doesn't do his job. Sickles hits us for 2 quick ones, boom, boom.
Yeah. They
don't score another point. They hit us for 2 quick ones in the first, 5 minutes of the game. I go over there, all right, this is what happened. We didn't get no hands on them, boom, boom, boom. They don't score another point, but that's enough to win the game.
Right.
And that's where you go, listen, it's just the simplicity of it. You have to do the same thing every single time, over and over again until it's, I had guys
until it's muscle memory. You know how it is.
Exactly.
Making muscle memory.
I had guys who had no business playing DB, playing safety and corner for us that year. because we had nobody else.
Oh, I remember.
We had nobody else, and I love those kids because they bought into the fact that we just told them, you're going to do this every single time.
You had a baby John Dixon who's at University of South Carolina right now. Baby.
We had a baby
Mola. Yeah, you had some guys, man.
We had John Dixon. He was a freshman or sophomore. Dixon was a sophomore. Hampton was a sophomore.
I think Mola gave you like 3 or 4 picks that year too.
Mola's 5'5".
Come from a tough family though.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I'm saying. He just did what he just did, and I had to ride him every week. I had to practically bitch him to make sure that he did what I asked him to do. But those guys were there, and that's the thing is if you do something and you really and truly like buy into it, and that becomes just your mantra, what you do in your head every time, it doesn't even matter. So, you know, you can have success like that for a DB. One thing I would say is, and this is the thing that made, in my opinion, it made the defensive back's job almost impossible, is when they took the fear of getting hit away from the wide receiver. When they started implementing targeting rules and the hitting a defenseless receiver rules.
Man, that's a good point you bringing up.
Like when I can remember being a receiver, and the thing I was able to get a lot of credit for was, Gene's willing to go across the middle. You can catch it, you can launch him, he's gonna catch the ball, he's gonna get back up, he's gonna do it again. You see bad receivers who aren't willing to do that. But with the advent of these rules, we've seen bad receivers become highly touted. And then people wonder why they don't work out in college, because in college, everything is that much faster so they can get to you quicker. You know, so like just talk about the fear and the hands-off mentality that you almost have to have now as a defensive back. How do you transition that in the education to your DBs so that they understand when to be physical and when they can't afford to be physical because it can be detrimental to their team?
One thing I do stress, I'm gonna be honest, I don't care about the pass interference stuff. Like, we're not gonna grab and hold. I'm gonna teach that for us not to do that. But if they call it, they call it. They don't, they don't. We're gonna be aggressive. If they lean inside to run that dig across the middle, we're gonna be leaning on them hard. We're gonna go inside with them. But I'm really trying to coach them to keep their eyes up and keep their head up in terms of hitting, because I don't want that targeting rule, because they're looking for it. And like you said, man, in our day, you could not run a 1-yard slant. These kids are running 1-yard slants right to the middle linebacker.
1-yard slant. I don't even know what a 1-yard slant is, but every time I see it, I just laugh.
Right, you couldn't run that back in our days, man. You get sent to the hospital. So now, really, I'm just trying to coach guys to make sure you hit them low, keep your head up, put your head to the outside, some form of that rugby tackle and stuff. That we both like. But as far as like the penalties, man, and the aggressiveness, bro, like one thing I always teach, and I hope guys know this, and it's in the rule book. If a receiver initiates contact, you're allowed to fight that contact with your contact. So when they push, you can pull. And I tell DBs this all the time. When a receiver pushes off, you're allowed to pull. 9 times out of 10, referees not calling that for pass interference. People often got upset over the NFL this past year over not overturning some pass interference call, what they deemed controversial. But the receiver's pushing off and the DB's pulling. He's allowed to do that. He's allowed to get back in position. So if you're teaching guys that, which I am, I don't know about everybody else, I am, then there are ways to combat all that, because the receivers, it's the only position I've ever seen where guys are 6'4", 225 pounds, 4'3", 4'4", and they don't want to be touched.
Absolutely.
Wow. Like, you don't want to be touched? It's like the softest position on the field, if you think about it. Like,
it makes sense though, because that's how it's been legislated now, which is why all of the real goons that play wide receiver, they're all physical guys. If you notice, all of the guys who are really good, like try to pump DeAndre Hopkins.
You're not doing it.
See how that's gonna work for you. Try to pump that monster up there or up here in Atlanta.
You're not doing it.
I mean, come on, Julio gonna eat your lunch immediately. the wide receivers who are really good, ain't nobody punking AB. You can say what you want about AB. Nobody punking him.
Nobody.
When you look at those receivers that are having success and the ones who are not, and you're looking at all of these 6'5", 6'4", like prima donna looking, specimens that walk in and you're like, well, how is he not just jumping over over DBs every single play? It's because he doesn't have it here. And once a DB knows that you don't have it here, it just sits in your chest the whole day because he knows that's not what you like. You see, it's actually rare that you see a big wide receiver be willing to actually play to his size. I think Mike Evans does a good job of it.
He does.
He does a good job of playing to his side. He's not overly fast. He's not going to just jump over you. Like, he doesn't have that overt athleticism that you would see in some of the more elite athletes. But I mean, even a guy like Calvin Johnson on the sneak, he wasn't really trying to get physical with you. He was just the athletic freak. I mean, you just couldn't do anything with the back. He jumped higher than you. He ran faster than you. He's 4 inches taller than you. Like, what are you going to do?
And that's another thing that you said about how these guys are running across the middle and they don't pan out in college or the pro. And that goes back to another art form. There was an art form of running across the middle. There was an art form of quarterbacks throwing the ball in the middle. Now they can just throw that thing willy-nilly. Either the ball is being caught because the DB don't want to get don't want to get a targeting call. In college, he don't want to get kicked out. In the pros, he probably don't want the fine. And the helmet is something serious. Like, you don't even want to do it to your own teammate, but what you're stuck in a rock between a hard place when you're put in a position as a DB. So it took away the art form of guys. There was a difference between Dan Marino. That's why these guys can throw the ball 4,000, 5,000 yards like it's nothing. You throw it in the middle of the field like it's nothing. Before, you couldn't throw that ball in the middle of the field like that. That's why I think John Elway's highest, completion percentage in the season was like 61, 62%. These guys are throwing 70%, 68, 69, like nothing these days.
Yeah, and they're doing it and still being not that great. Like, that's the thing. They're doing it and you're like,
Right.
I remember, like, the whole thing with throwing across the middle was, you see traffic, I needed to be low and I needed to be in front of me so I could essentially just dive and then catch it and avoid that person that's coming for my neck, right behind. Now they're throwing the ball behind the dude, right where the DB's staring.
Don't even matter.
He doesn't even care. He just turn around and plucking it. He's not worried about getting laced. And then every time you see somebody get laced, people go to it's just awful. It's the danger of the game. I'm like, you can't legislate the violence out of a game that was built on violence.
That's what made Steve Young so great as a quarterback.
Absolutely.
When he threw the ball through the middle and on the seams at the West Coast offense, he's throwing the ball. When the receiver catches it, he knows where the defender is. Same thing what made Kurt Warner great in his heyday with the Rams. Those guys know they run across the middle. The ball's behind them. The DB is probably in front of them, so they're going to catch it behind them, spin out, and go the other way. Same thing with them catching on them or in the front of them. You know what I mean? Like, it took away the art form, man, with these new rules. But it is what it is. We got to adjust, man. And so these days, we got to just teach these guys. I hope they don't start bringing those college rules of ejecting players to high school, man, because with high school refs, that ain't going to fly.
They don't know what they're doing now. They don't know what they're doing now, let alone if you give them more rules. And here's my thing. I'm not mad. Much power? I'm not mad because it's impossible for each state to have enough good high school referees because you're talking about hundreds upon hundreds of schools. Mm-hmm. So every Friday, you need to have 700 good referees in each state? Like, that's just not going to happen.
Right.
So, I mean, it is what it is. Don't give them more. If anything, you need to take some stuff off their plate. Don't give them any more. Transitioning and talking about things, I know that you're heavily involved in 7-on-7 and 7v7. I'm not a huge 7v7 guy.
No.
And it's not. I tell people it's because I'm a receiver. I like to throw the ball. My issue with 7v7 is that to me, you don't get the same benefit out of it at the level that you're at, because you can't necessarily dictate that you're doing the things that are going to help you in the defense and or offense that you're in high school. That's my issue with it. Early on, 7-on-7 used to be all about taking your high school team. If you remember, the first national 7v7 was the Nike invitation, and they used to have like Plant come and Miami Northwestern come, and they would bring entire teams to play, and then they lumped it in with the Elite 11 stuff and decided, well, we're just going to get the best of the best at every skill position, and that's what kind of gave birth to this explosion of 7v7 now. But for me, it misses the mark a lot of the times of where it's supposed to be. Now, I mean, obviously nothing beats being able to compete, and so that's always good. But for you, I want you to tell me 7v7, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
All right, so the good. Well, I'm affiliated with Unsigned Preps, aka the Up Fam. So
shout out to the Up Fam.
Man, we're a little different, man.
Ricky Saylor and them boys.
Right, you know it.
Rick Saylor been doing it for years, man. That's my dude. Man. I appreciate him.
Shout out to Rick, man. He stepped away because he got some other stuff he's working on, man. But he's still around. He's still mentoring all of us, still mentoring the guys. We need him. Shout out to Tez, Coach Nelly, Coach Todd Timmons, Coach Strong, Coach Denzel, Coach Knapp, everybody affiliated with Up Fam. But yeah, man, we do ours a little different, man, in terms of what we do. I just want to talk about us real quick before I get into the good, bad, and ugly. We really want to have a reason to mentor and hang around these kids, to keep them out of trouble, to keep, what we deem undesirables from around them. You know what I'm saying? Like all of us, we like to pride ourselves on all of us that are affiliated with Up Fam. We all of us got college degrees. How many times can you say all the black men affiliated with this one organization are all college graduates? You know what I mean? So we take pride. We definitely take pride in that. People can say what they want to say about college degree. We take pride in that, whatever, right? So we're a little different in the sense that we love what we do, but we're more so on the impact of, having these kids understand about giving back to the community. In terms of, if you make it to the league, you ain't got to partner with the Boys and Girls Club. You ain't never been a part of the Boys and Girls Club. You've been a part of the TBYFL, Florida Elite, whatever Little League program. When you make it to the league, you come back and give back to them programs.
Absolutely.
We trying to show them things like that. And 7-on-7 just a way for us to bring them together, get us to play some football, be competitive. We want to win. And the good part about it is, man, you get to have these kids line up with some of the best kids in the nation, so they can rub elbows against some of the other kids to either see how they stack up or how they don't stack up, what work they need to put in, what work they don't, so they can understand that sometimes genetics come into play. In terms of them sizing up with somebody else. The good parts about it, right? It's competitive in the sense that when you get a team that you're going against that's running real football plays, you know what I'm saying? That's really, really running real football play. You get a good team out there like Pro Impact out of Jayville. They have tight ends out there sometimes. You know what I mean? Really running their football plays. You know what I mean? You got some on the bad side. You got some teams putting all 5 receivers in the boundary. Like, bro, come on, man. Like, really? Then you got some teams out there running 7 DBs.
Right.
Linebackers. And sometimes, and I'm guilty of that myself. I can't even complain about it. I'm guilty of that myself, because if you get a team they're not even using the running back, they're using all 6 receivers out here. What are you going to do to combat that to ensure that your team's competitive? So it puts you sometimes between a rock and a hard place, but I don't let it dictate what we're trying to do, because I'm not bringing a linebacker to the tournament to not have him play. Bro, you're here because you're going to play no matter what. You're right. So the good parts about it, man, again, you get a lot of kids from a lot of different areas getting together, man, from different teams, from private schools to public schools, kids that may have played together in elementary, little league that haven't played together since that time, getting back together, kids on the same high school team, playing together. And like I said, man, gives us a chance to really mentor them, man. And a lot of people get mad at 7-on-7 thing because they don't get the chance to control the kids anymore. So are there going to be shady characters on the ugly side and everything? Yeah, man. But I guarantee you it doesn't stack up to the amount of high school coaches I know that didn't give kids certain letters that use kids to get to better their position to get a college job. Mm-hmm. So they shouldn't fret or be upset when a guy like myself, who don't work in the school system, who works in the private sector, who wants to mentor these kids and coach these kids, but not necessarily be a school teacher. You know what I'm saying? So, mm-hmm. And that's the ugly part of it. And there are always going to be some ugly parts. You're going to have some shady characters. You're going to have some street agents, or what they call deemed street agents these days. You're going to have some people using these kids not for the best interest. For example, you'll have some 7-on-7 teams playing kids that have already graduated high school that are getting ready to go to college. That's bad and ugly, man. That doesn't mm-hmm. make any sense. Like, do you have this kid's best interest at heart? You know what I'm saying? Like, a kid that's already graduated, who's a senior, who's signed to Power 5 schools, shouldn't be out here still playing 7-on-7 for this team anymore. You as a man should tell them, hey, man, you're done with this, bro. Chill out. You don't need to do this anymore. And and another part of the ugly part is the over-the-top celebrations. Don't get me wrong. I like a good celebration as anybody else, man. I like, I grew up liking the Hurricanes. I still love the Hurricanes, man. I talk a little trash myself. I love me a good old-fashioned celebration. You know what I mean?
What? Right? You talk a little trash?
Right. Stop it. I love you. I'm definitely if you don't like it, keep them out the end zone. But giving people trash bags, writing your name on people, spiking people in the head with the ball.
Yeah, no.
It's just that kind of stuff, man. Is like you want to ask the other team on the other side, like, bro, do you want to fight out here? Because what do you expect our kids to do when y'all do that? Like, we're gonna do our best to stop this. We don't want this to happen. Mm-hmm. But bro, like, we ain't out here for this.
No. And the truth is, our generation, that's game over. The moment you throw a football at my head, that's a wrap. The game is over.
You is over. To a place that is beyond, like, that's like spitting on somebody in regular. Like, you don't do that.
Off rip. Like, when people don't understand, like, this stuff is serious to a level where it's hard for me to click it off. So as a coach, I teach my kids, you better not, like, take that level of disrespect. Right. You better not do it. Because I'm going to teach you, like, that's not how you celebrate. B, if somebody celebrates like that on you, make it the last time they ever celebrate on anybody like that. Because there's a level, and again, I think this is the part of football that people just don't get unless you've been inside of it. There's a level of pride in oneself and the name that they represent and the name that's on the back that can't be disrespected. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's different. Right. If you're guarding me and I run and I just jump up and I snatch the ball, I'm 6'4". Like, okay, cool. You can take that. You can respect that. But then if I just all of a sudden take the ball and I smack you upside the head with it, come on. Like, what do you expect? Like, me, if I do that to you, I already know there's going to be a fight.
Right.
So the reason I'm doing it must be because I wanted to fight you in the first place. You know what I'm saying?
Man. Like, and that's really the ugly part of it, man. And you got the another ugly part in terms of the high price tournament. Sometimes it's $1,000 for the tournament. Where's this money going? Some tournaments run really well, some tournaments aren't. But let me get back to the good side real quick. So another good part about it, and a lot of good thing about it, is exposure for the kids, right? Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. Kids are being exposed by their parents, with their high school teams. That's great, man. Sometimes there's too much exposure, but we like to pride ourselves in a lot of these 7-on-7 teams in terms of getting these kids, when you do go to tournaments, every tournament that we go to, we take them on a college visit in that town that we're in. So we usually have someone directly connected with the program that we can go talk to. And there's a big difference between going with us versus them going with their mama and daddy and them being treated like 1 in 200 people that's out there versus them coming with this 7-on-7 team. I mean, that's just the facts, man.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's more bang for the buck. It's more bang for the buck for the college team. The college team is going to look at an up-fam team and go, okay, they probably have 6 guys on there that I need to be recruiting.
Right.
If you go with your mom and daddy, it's just you. You know what I'm saying? And even to a certain extent, if you go with your high school team, it might be like that. But the advantage that the high school team has, because I peeped the game. This is the way I'm flipping it back on 7v7. Mm-hmm. My high school, we're just gonna create our own national 7-on-7 team. So now my kids don't have to go to ABC 7-on-7 elite, whatever, in order to get that national exposure.
And you know what? That's a really good point, because, some people, I don't know if they think it's glitz and glamour or it's all fun and games or we're just having the best times, but they don't understand the headache that comes with it too, because there's no loyalty in this. These kids jump from team to team, game to game. Like,
absolutely.
I don't even want to say the kid's name, but you got this one kid who's a big time player. 3 different 7-on-7 teams announced our kid. Congrats to his commitment to such and such.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, so they don't even understand how it is chasing kids down. So that's part of the bad side of it, man. Like,
I'm glad you mentioned that, because one thing I wanted to talk to you about was this idea behind credit, and it seems as if it's weird. You don't even see this a lot from the high school coaches, more than you see it from like trainers and, off-season teams, whatever. Everybody wants to take credit for that kid. Everybody, and I mean, obviously, again, at the end of the day, we know there's some money involved. Right. But like, just talk to that type of thing, because one of the biggest culprits I see right now is IMG. And my issue with IMG is when you have that much money backing you, there is no reason for you to ever have to accept transfers in their senior year or their junior year or whatever it might be. You should only focus on bringing in a really awesome 9th grade class every single year, using your elite level facilities and training and coaching staffs to be able to train those kids up to be a legitimate superior football team. Now you don't have to like be one of those teams where I gotta have this prep squad and I have to have this other squad. You can have that naturally. You could have your ninth grades, your varsity, your JV, and your PG come, and they've been with IMG for 5 years or 4 years or 3 years going up through. But they don't do that. And so then you see, we had a kid when I was at Tech who transferred for his senior year. What was his name?
Tyree St. Louis.
St. Louis. He went to Miami. Yep. He was at IMG essentially for the football season. And everything was, IMG congratulates its newest, alumni. Like, that dude has no real legitimate connection to you.
That's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? He went there when he already had these offers, and you see it time and time again. And so now you're seeing it in quarterback training. You see it in receiver training. You see it in 7-on-7, where these entities are taking credit for a guy that they barely even work with.
Man, it's just one thing I try to pride myself on is acknowledging where the real work comes from. That's from the kid, and not trying to take no credit for this kid. Because one thing I always try to say is, man, I always thank a kid and thank their parents. Thank you for trusting me with them. And I always thank the kid, thank you for your hard work. And, salute to your high school coaches and your parents, because, man, at the end of the day, man, like, let's be for real. Like, I don't care if you train the kid from the off season of January to when camp starts in August. You're not with him every day at practice. Monday through Thursday, walkthroughs, film, game on Friday, film on Saturday, Sunday conditioning. You're not with him for them 10 weeks. So you're not with him when the pads are on, when it matters, on the sideline, during the game on Friday nights, when it matters. So, I don't get the big credit part in terms of, with some of the trainers per se, but I just think it's just, it come down to branding. Everybody want to let people know who they've trained and who they've done. You know what I'm saying? But I just ask whoever's doing it to make sure you treat all guys the same. You know, I treat the 8-year-olds the same way I treat somebody that's in the pros that I train. You know, I've been training a pro guy for a couple of years now, but I've never posted on my IG. We just work. You know what I mean? It is what it is.
Absolutely.
But it just, I don't know, man. You know how it is, man. Everybody in it. Not everybody in it for something, but you want to be compensated for your work. You want to be recognized for it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I get it, but I just think we got to be careful about not making sure it doesn't go too far and understanding that, you know, we really as a trainer, we're really the smallest part in these kids' success. The smallest. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing is, I think that there is merit in training.
Right.
I think that players should seek out training to supplement whatever they're getting from their team. Now, the thing that I do get upset about is when people will go out and pay their trainers, but then when it comes to kicking money into the program, essentially to go towards those coaches that train you every single day, now everybody cries poor. They go, oh, well, you know, you're already compensated for that. You know what those checks look like. That's not even, I mean, you're talking about cents on the hour that high school coaches are being paid, because the season's not just from August to late November. The season is essentially from January, mid-January,
all year
until late November, and then you give off some Christmas time. Right. You know, that's it.
Because we know this. We have football players that play 4 different sports.
Mm-hmm.
Let them get in trouble. What are they?
Football players. Absolutely.
We're always on the clock. You know what I mean?
Always on the clock, and we're always getting called into the office.
Always on the clock.
Always getting called into the office.
It is baseball season. They're calling the football coach into the office. What do we have to do with it? Right?
Hey, man, what's going on with your guy? I'm like, that guy's out playing baseball. What do you want me to do? Like, I can't control him for everywhere. You know, at some point, man. I've actually gone to the point where I tell an administration, like, seriously, like, if a kid on my team does something that requires them to be punished like one of the regular students, stop bringing it to me. Just punish them.
Just punish them.
Just punish them, and then we'll clean it up. And so now they know, okay, I'm not above the law because I'm a football player, even if that's not the intention of the administrator. You know, sometimes the intention is good. Like, hey, I want you to be able, because I feel like you're going to have a better impact than we as administrators have. And I'm like, no, because I can't suspend a kid from school, which immediately suspends him from the game. You know, like, I can suspend him from the game, but then have to answer all of the questions why. Well, if what he's doing is so bad, then why didn't he get in trouble at school? And then I try to go, ma'am, the point is we don't want the kid to miss school.
Right.
You know, we want the kid to be able to still, but I'm in today's society, I'm like, look, bam him upside the head. That's the only way that kid's going to learn.
You keep everybody on the same level. You take it out of football's hand. You don't have to be judge, jury, executioner, God, Godfather, Dad. You don't have to be all that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man, that is the best. That's a great idea.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if you lose because a kid got suspended, because one kid got suspended, hey, you know what? You can live with that. Like, I mean, it's gonna suck, but you can live with that. The Pacers lost to the Bulls. If Jalen Rose is there in Game 6, do they win Game 6? No. I mean, Game 5, do they win Game? No, Game 6, yeah, because he missed Game 6.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Do they win Game 6 if Jalen Rose is there? That's something that didn't get talked about on the doc, but I remember it. People act like Jalen Rose was just some dude. Like, Jalen Rose was nice with it, you know, and he was a matchup problem because he was so long, you know. But that's the thing is, everything has consequences to it, and we have to be willing to accept the consequences, because we have to teach these young men that when they do something that they're not supposed to do, they have to accept the consequences for them. I'm gonna get you out of here on this one. We already alluded to it. Florida coaches, and I don't know, I haven't taken a poll, I haven't gone and done the research. I'm just going to speak for the region. Because I have looked at the Southeast region. The Southeast region, Florida is the worst at paying and incentivizing their coaches. And I think that the only way that is ever going to change is for the coaches to stand up and say, we're no longer going to take this anymore. What do you think?
I am with you 1,000,000,000,000%. Like me, I'm old school, man. I'm Malcolm more than Martin. Break the system, break it down. You know what I mean? Bankrupt the entire system. Like go on strike before the first Friday night game, and no every coach walk off the field. We ain't coaching. But this is what pauses me and what I keep coming back to. Me, you, every high school coach on a staff right now, Georgia to Florida, we know 10 guys who are coaching Little League somewhere else who, if we strike, will come coach those high school teams right now for that money.
Absolutely.
You mean to tell me some 14U coach wouldn't go coach St. Thomas right now, wouldn't coach Jesuit right now, wouldn't go coach where you at? Bro, they would right now. So
absolutely.
Us unionizing, they would do nothing but usher in a new wave of coaches and just have them get away with it on Friday nights. They got a game. They don't care. Kids still gonna go to school based on talent level. Got a coach, right? It'll be ugly games, but you know it, bro. Like it's gone. I would love to unionize, but how strong is the union gonna be when they can get anybody to coach? School districts will change their standards then. You know what I mean? You know how they have one standard for the paid coaches versus volunteer? They'll even them out then.
Well, I think it's a situation where all coaches have to be on board, because this is about more than just.
Got to unionize Little League coaches too then.
Yeah, this is about more than just
everybody.
More than just, hey, we at the high school level don't get paid accordingly. This is about an inequality that breaks down into the actual system of sports. And how the value of the coach is in football versus the value of coaches in every other sport. So a volleyball coach, a high school volleyball coach, can coach a high school volleyball team, but still have her own club team that pays her to coach. Those players on that club team can play for that woman on her regular team. But if a high school football coach coaches an outside team, and for some reason those outside team players just start coming to play for that coach, that's a violation.
It's a violation.
Listen,
tennis, soccer, they all do it, but
soccer, tennis, baseball,
baseball especially, all
volleyball.
Yep.
They all have revenue streams that they're able to generate outside of just what they're doing in their sport. They have much less players. Their impact doesn't reach as wide, because not only is football responsible for the most amount of kids, but the impact of football is felt throughout the entire first half of a school year, and the second half of the second part of that school year.
Coach, we have to give our money from the gate to the band.
Yeah.
Every school.
You have to share.
Well, not my school. I'm at a private school.
Absolutely. And you can see the difference too, right?
You see the difference.
Facilities everywhere.
But the public schools, that's one of the main reasons why I'm in private school, and I'm probably never going back to public school, just to be honest. Pay, standards, all that kind of stuff. But the public school stuff, man, like even when we coached together at Wharton, we had the whole new Tampa out there. I mean, packed stands, packed for a Blake game.
Packed.
And all that money going to the band.
And that's the thing.
If that's split between us as coaches, it'll be bad, but it won't be as bad.
Well, that's the thing is if athletic departments, if the football team was allowed to generate the revenue from their own gate and from their concessions, they would have enough money to be self-contained. You wouldn't have to give, like the county wouldn't have to fund any high school team.
If you got a good coach that attracts talent, that brings players, that brings boosters, he can have a booster club that pays his own coaches. I mean, it wouldn't. They're so caught up in the money and they're so money hungry. Yeah. They want all the money, man. It's
about the control. So if the money always goes to the county, and people think that Georgia's sweet. It's not that Georgia's sweet everywhere. It really isn't.
Tell them, let them know. I try to tell them that.
There's only certain places where Georgia is super sweet. Now, that doesn't mean when I would say, like, as far as the stipend that you get as a coach, it's better. But we end up here all getting $100,000.
Right.
Like, people think the $100,000 people, they're not getting paid $100,000 just to be a football coach. That's a misnomer. That's $100,000 for their teaching and their coaching combined, which is
pretty much to be the mayor of that town. Also,
I was about to say, but the responsibilities that they hold and the things that they're required to do in order to be able to keep that job. Let you have a bad season, and people are starting to think about your job being replaced.
Get out of there.
You know, like. You have 2 bad seasons in a row. If you haven't won big before that, you're probably gone. Now, when you juxtapose that with Florida and they're firing coaches after 1 and 2 years when they're not even paying them or giving them or equipping them to be successful,
right?
Why would you stay?
That's like Middleton. Why would you stay? That's like Middleton. Someone taking that Middleton job here in Hillsborough County should tell them, if I'm not going to get 6 years, then I'm not taking the job. And I need that on paper.
I need that on paper.
I need that
like
on
the only way you can fire me.
Spoto, same way.
The only way you can fire me is if I do something that is
egregious.
Like something that
personal conduct policy.
Personal
like
conduct that. Type of stuff. You're not just going to fire me after 2 years, 3 years because we're not winning.
Right.
Because it's going to take an entire philosophy and culture change. That's a 4-year plus process.
Some of these high school jobs are paradigm shifts. Like it's the twilight zone in terms of trying to get those things corrected, man.
Why would Mike Williams stay there? Like that people were upset because they were like, oh, he left. And I'm like, but there's no support there. Now, I would say that he has just as good a chance to win at Middleton as he does at Wharton. But it's not about that. It's about the support.
He's going to get a ton of support.
He's going to get a ton of support at Wharton because that clientele, many of which has started to stray towards that.
If he can win.
Yeah.
You know, when I was up there, Coach, when we was up there.
Yeah.
I stayed in that area. There's so many big-time kids that live in the area that went to TC, then went to Armwood.
Absolutely.
If you can get those kids to be standing and stay in that area.
Absolutely.
You see what Batman Woods did when he was there?
Yeah. They would leave. They'll go to other places if they don't feel like you're going to give them what they need. Exactly. But as long as you can show that you're going to give them what they need, and unfortunately for them, it's wins. You know, that's what they need is wins.
Right.
Like as long as you can show them that, you're going to have an opportunity to be successful. But the problem is you can win at Middleton and still not get any support. Like that's tough. Like you worry about teammates gangbanging at Middleton, man. It's absolutely different type and again, and I've prided myself on trying to stay like most of the places I've coached have been in inner cities. Mm-hmm. It's by design. I have tried, like I've been around, but I've gotten to a point now where that's where I've tried to zero in on being able to give back, you know. But the problem is a lot of times these programs, they just don't have enough people who are willing to do what's necessary to see the goal that they want. Like, they want you to be uber successful. Well, guess what? If you want us as a team to be uber successful, you got to kick out. You got to be able to, like, some of these programs in Georgia, like their kids are paying $400+ in dues a year. $400. But you know what they do? They set up all different types of ways to make that money not feel tight. What's $400 over a year?
Over a year, right?
Like, so if you think about it,
less than $40 a month.
Absolutely. So, like, if you think about it, you go, all right, well, you know, starting in January, we're going to start working you towards these dues for next year. We're going to have this car wash. If you participate in the car wash, that's going to give you $50 on your books. You know what I'm saying? Like, they put together all of these different ways in order for the kid to pay. The ones that don't, they end up having to drop all that money. It's usually the kids who ain't worried about money, or the kids whose parents really are not invested in what those kids are. So now they're struggling, but those parents are now struggling. Oh, $400, ma'am, it could have been $50 a month. It could have been $50 a month for 8 months. You made it $400 right now.
For real.
You know, and so, like, when you start saying that type of stuff and you start talking about, hey, listen, we're going to take dues and we're going to have fundraisers, and part of this money is going to go to your coaches. People all of a sudden go, oh, well, you trying to get rich. Nobody's getting rich. Nobody's getting rich. But you want to be legitimately compensated, because if you're playing baseball, you're kicking that bread in. If you're playing baseball, you're kicking that money in. If you're playing softball, you're kicking that money in.
Right.
It's only in football where you see it become an issue when it's talking about money or talking about compensating the coach. I believe youth league coaches should be compensated.
Me too, man. All those hours they put in, all
those hours, man. My brother,
all those traveling, all that stuff they have to buy for those kids, man. They definitely need to be compensated. It should be some kind of kitty for them little league coaches. I mean, you got directors of these little league organizations making 6 figures, $100,000-$200,000, man. Like nothing, like water. They should definitely be compensated, man, for real.
The president of TBYFL, that's his job. Like, his job is to run TBYFL. Now, I'm not in their pocket, but I know he's being paid. I also know that the spring league that they normally do goes through him. Like, he's a part owner of that spring league.
All which league coaches should be compensated, man. All of them. That's
absolutely
so much they got to.
But every time
those dudes getting home after 8 o'clock every night and got to go to work.
Absolutely.
Families, like, man, that's a lot. Other people's kids, they got to drop kids off, only to pull up to people's house and see 4 or 5 cars there. Like,
absolutely
get paid, man, for real.
So, like, I think when we talk about unionizing, it has to be a coaches association that is all coaches.
Well, we're lockstep with one another.
We lockstep because those youth coaches knows they have to understand that if the high school coach gets taken care of better, then there's a trickle down effect that happens for them. Because what they find out is here's what would happen if all the high school coaches, like, if they all went on strike, and like you said, those youth coaches came up, they would figure out they don't really want them problems. Like, most youth coaches have no clue how different it is at the high school level than at the youth level. They just think they do. They just think they're all built. They all think they're Bill Belichick.
Crazy. They really, don't get me wrong, there are some really great youth football coaches.
Fantastic.
This is a different level, man.
It's a different level, but it's a different expectation.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Different expectation.
It's a different expectation.
And here's the thing. I try to tell them, because I call out youth coaches all the time. And the fact that they don't really respond to me, like, that means that I'm telling the truth. A lot of those motherfuckers don't know X and O's. A lot of them people, they don't understand how to game plan. They don't get the whole point of it. So it's like, when I look at your play, when I look at your film, and you put out a highlight of a youth kid, and all of his plays is just all what he did, I go, well, where is the structure? Like, here's the design that got this kid into a position to make this play. You don't see it. You don't see it. Wide receiver running a non-existent route, jumps over a smaller DB. That's not a highlight. That's just you out there being a better athlete than somebody else. And so like when I call them out on these things and I say that y'all are all recruiters out here, none of you are real coaches because you're not willing to, none of you are bragging about what scheme you put in. You're bragging about the kid you were able to bring to your program. Oh, we got such and such. We about to be a dog. Now, I know that there's some coaches like my cousin Chauncey Scott, Duke Scott, like, who for years with the Jaguars, like they've been the gold standard. Those dudes could walk into a high school and coach. You know what I'm saying? There's guys that have done it. George Martinez right now, he's the offensive coordinator at Jefferson. Jefferson's offense has been really nice. They've been, he's done, but he's a guy he's worked on his craft. When he got the opportunity to go to high school, he went to high school.
Coach Misek at Clearwater, who's been really winning big, came from
yes, sir.
League, man.
Yes, sir. Yes,
and I seen a 6U coach, man, on the Jaguars throwing 30-yard passes and flag, man. Yeah, hell of a coach. I think they
getting jiggy.
Yeah, he's a good coach, man.
Coach Simmons. Coach Simmons, his boys in high school now. He coaches Pee Wee. He coaches the little level, not like the flag, but the itty bitty kids. But he's a good coach. Like there are good coaches out there.
Petey Smith and his big brother. I forget his big brother name. Those guys are great coaches too.
Yep.
He's a good coach. Jamie Bush is a good coach.
Jamie Bush,
really good little league coaches, man. Like I know.
Jamie Bush be capping though. Like
flack about the X's and O's, but those guys are real motivators. So, and it's a different type of, football down there. So I don't want to get too hard on them about the X's and O's, although they got them. It's a different type of football. Them boys, those guys are good motivators. Good at bringing a dog out of kid, finding those dogs. Those guys are good at, toughening the kids up, getting their heart, and really getting the best out of these kids and getting the best out of their unit. So, although those X's and O's aren't what we desire outside of a bubble screen here and there, sweeps left, sweeps right. You know how it is, man. Counter, running back, and cut, ran this way, cut back 50 times, he gone, broke 1,000 tackles. We get it. I get it. But, it still take a good coach to give that player the ball and stay out his own way. You know what I mean? So
I'm with you there. I'm with you there. And I don't. That's why I say I give them credit where credit's due. Like there are a lot of great recruiters. There are some hella motivators. Like there's some guys who just good with but on your team, you have to have somebody that can sit down and go, coach, this ain't gonna work.
Right.
Like this isn't fundamentally sound.
As much respect as we got, we used to have those moments. You like,
absolutely,
no, bro.
We had to tell a coach, like, look, this is not gonna work.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom. I remember we had an argument with a coach about this. Like
Coach Martin.
Yeah.
Away real quick.
and I love Coach Martin. Coach Martin coached me when I was in high school.
I love him.
He's a great dude, but sometimes you have to like and if you remember,
you gotta disagree, man.
Yeah, I used to have arguments with the offensive staff. Like, because I would be over there going, look, I know what you're going to do before you're doing it because it's not sound. Like, you're not using it, and they used to always, stay to do this. And I'm like, we're not giving up any touchdowns over here. What are you doing?
If one offensive staff had listened to you.
Oh, my gosh. Like, that was my thing is like, I was.
Like, I'm running the defense. You're not going to listen to the guy who ran the defense with me, who probably knows everything that I'm going to do. And he's there coaching offense. Really? I'm not going to listen to that guy? I'm trying to. Y'all love to run the clock on y'all now.
Oh my gosh. I would just try to tell people stuff, and it just would be like falling on deaf ears. And the thing is that at some point, like you can't just go, oh, we have these really good kids, because the other team had, like, that's the thing, when you get up against another team that has really good kids, but their coaches actually know some semblance of like X and O's and how to scheme you, you just get mollywopped. Like, remember, we
run and clock them boys.
Remember, we were playing Plant.
Yep.
And we had the game plan, and we had them locked.
Gene,
we had them locked.
Remember that first play of the game, what we did to him?
First play of the game.
We jumping offside, hit him in the mouth.
Hit him in the mouth. They're like, oh, they were like, oh, that's awful. That's terrible. For the rest of the game, they were shook. They were shook for the rest of the game. Zip. It was zip, and we could not get any points on the board.
We offered the ball 3 times inside the 10.
3 times.
The first half.
We couldn't get any points on the board, and then eventually Plant's going to do what they do. Like, eventually they're going to wear you down. And it happened the same the next year. The next year, they just started going forward on 4th down. They were like, listen, this is a bend but don't break defense. We're just going to keep on, like, trying to keep this. They ran the clock down so much. They got 1 score on there, and they knew that we weren't going to be able to score back with
Robert
them.
Wiener, a genius, man. That guy made me a better coach, bro. Listen here, man. I've been coaching against him every year that I've been in high school football, because I've always been in the district, and he's made me a better coach for it. That guy's a genius, man. My goodness. He pays attention.
Everything. To everything. Listen. He doesn't let it go. But the thing is, I tell people, and this is why we were able to pop him when I was at Tech, because when you have somebody on the other side,
did beat them that year, sure did.
Yeah, when you have somebody on the other side who's able to game plan the same way he can game plan, but they're also able to bring some practical experience to which he can't do, you start to tilt the tables, because it wasn't like they were going up against a team that wasn't as athletic as they were. So when they walked into Tech with all that plant, what? And all they did was just awaken the dog. We already had a game plan in place that said you dudes are not going to score.
At all. I remember that.
Not going to score.
I called Coach Blake to get a game plan from him. We had some success against him. Man. Yeah, but Robert Wiener Coach Wiener make you a better coach, man. Like,
funny story about that too. Like, we actually, when we were playing them on the week before, Carlos and I, we sitting down. It was Carlos, me, and I think the other Pops was there. The other linebacker coach Pops was there, and we were putting together the game plan. And he was like, so what you like? I was like, I like this, and this. He was like, I like the same thing you like. And so we started looking at like what we were seeing, like, and we started asking the questions. So then he made me flip my offensive cap on and went, okay, so when we do this to you, what do you want to do? I'm like, this is what I'm gonna do. So we had the counter for when they figured out what we were doing, what we were going to go through, what we were going to go to. And the thing we figured out, we're not letting their offensive line get to the second level. So we were using our defensive line like offensive linemen to let Fred Russ and them boys just go and murder them cats. Remember, Fred Russ, he went to FIU, graduated, by the way, which I was surprised by because he's a little bit, he's a little bit extra. But, that dude was a monster when you just let him just go. When he didn't have to sit and read stuff, he was at his best. When he just knew an assignment and go. And so we used the D line as as an offensive line to keep those guys from climbing to the second level. They had no answer. Everything went east and west, and you can't run east and west on an athletic team. They just shoot you down. So once we took their north-south game away, that was a wrap. I remember that game specifically because I was in awe of how like cocky they were to come to Tech with screaming all that plant what, and I was like, man, times have really changed. Because if this was like when I was in school back when Furman Bell and them boys was there, Like that would have been a fight. That would have been a legit fight. Jermaine Blakely and all them boys back then. Like it's a different time. So it was a great thing. And I used to love game planning with Coach Blake, and he does a great job down there.
Great coaches over there, Coach Paul.
Yeah, I've had a good experience.
They got they got a great freshman class, man. Supposedly getting both Rod Gainey and Stacey Gage.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where they're going to shake out at, like where all those guys are going to shake out, because they all play.
I hope Stacey Gage stays in Tampa, man. I really don't want him to go to IMG as a freshman, man. I really would like to see him.
You know what though?
Hillsborough County legend, man. That's what I would like for him to be.
Here's what I would say:
come through Tampa, play Hillsborough County football, play Tampa football, lead this thing a legend, bro. You know, you're in the Hillsborough County Hall of Fame. No matter what you do from here on out, you left a legacy. IMG, you just another one. That's it.
I will tell you this though, I would respect if he went as a freshman. I respect it.
I get because it, the point you made earlier. I get
absolutely.
It. I get it.
Because now he's taking advantage.
Show me something.
Yeah, he's taking advantage of the entire system that they have there.
But a kid like that, we know what he's gonna be.
Oh no, he's gonna have his pick wherever he wants to go when it's time. That kid is a goon.
Unless he's committing armed robberies, that kid's going D1. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
You never know
what I'm talking about. I mean, listen, he's had some people around him, and all three of those boys, by the way, they've had people around them that understand the game inside the game. They understand the hustle of the streets.
Yeah, they got great people around them, bro.
Yeah.
You know, they unsigned preps kids, they got a support system from their uncles, their dads, their moms.
Absolutely.
Moms, all that.
They understand the streets. They understand how to keep them away from there. So
yep.
I would love to see him stay and be a Hillsborough County guy.
Me too, man. That's what I want to see, man.
But as a football guy, if he went as a freshman, I would respect it if he stays there all 4 years.
I feel like if a kid go there all 4 years, they're gonna be good, but I feel like they're gonna end up like a lot of those Texas kids, maxed out.
You just think they just gonna see? I don't know, because I feel like because there's so many people there, you're not going to get the same workload as you would get in Texas. You know what I'm saying? Because they're gonna have 3 backs, so you may only get like 12 carries a game.
I guess I mean in a sense, like, you know how our kids from Florida, well, most kids may eat 3 meals a day. Our kids may eat 2. And they go to college, they get 3, 4, they blow up, they come back. You're like, whoa, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all I mean.
You're saying he's going to get that already. Like, he's going to already be there. See, I
want him to go in that old tech weight room, grind it out.
Just
get to a good weight so he get to college his freshman year.
Out there on that raggedy practice field. Yeah, I hear you. No, that's what's up. Hey, listen, we've already shot way over the time, man. I appreciate you, bro. Coach. Give everybody your social, man, how they can find you, any type of, businesses you got going on, plug them right now. Go ahead.
Y'all can find me on social media, man. I'm on Instagram, Pick6 Academy. I think it's Pick6_Academy. I think something like that. Follow me on Instagram, man. I'm a coach at Jesuit. I train on the side. I work full time. Other than that, man, I love football.
Absolutely.
Who's probably gonna be a beast.
Hey, listen, if you're in the Tampa Bay area, Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, wherever in that area, and you got a young man that you're looking for to get some legitimate training, but most importantly, if you want them to be around a coach that's going to tell them the truth, because that's the biggest thing, is you want coaches that are going to tell you the truth. You know what I'm saying? Hit that man up, Pick6 Academy on Instagram. You're going to see his face. You don't know how old he is. He looks like he's 22 years old. He ain't 22. It's been like that forever. It's not going to change. Coach Dub, I appreciate you once again.
Appreciate it, bro.
Yes, sir. And when all of this is over, if it's after the season, we're going to have to get together and chop it up.
Wing it. We got to wing it.
We got to wing it for sure.
That's going to be a dope podcast, bro.
Absolutely. Hey, for Quarantine Coaching Conversations, I've been Coach Gene Clemens. Y'all make sure y'all follow me on everything at Gene Clemens. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. we are progressing towards 1,000. Y'all know the goal before we hit summer is to be at 1,000 subscribers. So make sure you guys are subscribing. Most of you aren't even going to look at this until tomorrow morning anyway. But when you wake up and you're looking at, Coach posted something new, you're going to see this, watch the podcast, listen to it, but then make sure you hit that subscribe button and tell a friend, because everything helps. We don't want money from you. We just want your support. So until then, y'all take it easy. Love each other.
DB's in Tampa. Get at me.